This is the new American media.
All right, if you're listening live, that took a matter of seconds. If you're listening after the fact, thanks for listening after the fact. And I'm guessing you're probably either on our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com, or you've subscribed to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thenewamericanmedia, or you found this embedded on Facebook, search The New American Media and like our page there, or maybe you caught it on Twitter at American_media_. Either way, thanks. We do news stuff, we do sports stuff, we do a whole bunch of things. Thank you for staying in tune with us. We're talking with Rob Trautman. Follow him, Sports on Tap. You can do that on Twitter at SOT Podcast, or follow Rob. He's at RTrauty. That's RTRAUTY. And your Facebook page, I believe, was one of your favorite places. That's facebook.com/SOT Podcast. Let's talk about this Buckeyes team. I had the fortunate opportunity to go see them against Berkeley a couple of weeks ago, and they look pretty good. Kenny Guiton under center. I mean, just lighting it up back there. Braxton Miller's back now. Urban Meyer still hasn't lost as the Ohio State head coach. I like this. But they're going to get tested again this week. Let's do this, Rob. Talk about what you've seen out of the Buckeyes so far this year, and then let's kind of focus it on what to expect this coming week.
Well, with Ohio State, one thing you can say is Kenny Guiton is the best backup quarterback in college football, and a lot of fans out here thought he might still be the quarterback of Ohio State, but the fact of the matter is Braxton Miller's there too, and both of them very good quarterbacks. Braxton Miller, I think he's become a better passer this year. He's not running quite as much. He still does run. He's mobile in that pocket, but he makes pretty good decisions and has a better arm this year, and he has good weapons. Receivers Cory Brown and Devin Smith, Evan Spencer, they've combined for 51 receptions for 668 yards this year and 13 touchdowns. So they've been pretty active, and you didn't know really what you're going to get with the wide receiver position. That's one position I think you needed some of those guys. You've heard of Cory Brown rather than Devin Smith, but they've been hit or miss sometimes. So you got some good wide receivers there. And then the running back position, Jordan Hall has done a great job. But last week, Carlos Hyde came back, and Jordan Hall only had one carry. Well, Urban Meyer said he's going to have Jordan Hall back in the mix, and I'm interested to see how that works out because they are like a 1-2 punch. I'm not sure who's going to get more or less carries, but Jordan Hall is that explosive back where Carlos Hyde, he's a tough back. He's going to run over you. And both those guys, very impressive. So you got a good balance there with a passing game, but the running back position has been a strong point too. So offensively, Ohio State has been very impressive there. Now on the defensive side of the ball, up front it's impressive for Ohio State, but the secondary has been what struggled a little bit. So They're really going to have to work hard against a very good Northwestern team to contain the big plays. And the secondary. With Roby back at cornerback, he's supposed to be a first-round draft pick, and he didn't look like it last week.
Well, even at that Cal game that I went to, giving up 34 points, that was my main takeaway. I guess there were a couple takeaways because, the way they were scoring right out of the gate in the first quarter, I was like, hey, we might see a 100-point game here. This is fantastic. I like this. They obviously slowed it down, only put up 52, but I was more concerned, not so much cheering for the 52, as I was concerned about giving up 34 points to Cal. That bothered me, and it reminded me, because I've known Urban Meyer for a long time. I graduated from Bowling Green State University, and Urban was the coach when we cracked the top 25, and ESPN College Game Day came to town. But I remember during that stretch, during that time that I did spend 8 years in Bowling Green, 4 years graduated, and then I spent 4 playing in my band. By the way, I got my work done.
There you go.
But while I was there, I remember when Ben Roethlisberger with University of Miami would come into our stadium, and I mean he was throwing 40, 50-yard bombs over the defenders. It was like it wasn't even close. It was a game of keep away, and they knew how to play it. We didn't, and I kind of felt that way about the Buckeyes secondary and their defensive backs. Do you think it's just because they're young and they're still learning because we graduated so many players last year, or do you think this is going to be a problem moving forward the rest of the season, and ultimately it might cost us a spot in the national championship game or keep us from the trophy? Is it that bad, or do you see it improving a little bit?
I could see it improving a little bit. I mean, they are a very young secondary, but they have to learn quick, and I think Urban Meyer's the guy to do it. If they are young. I'm just not sure what to expect week in and week out of this group, especially, Northwestern's a team that has two quarterbacks, one a pocket passer and one that can move, that they're good with big plays. And I think if Ohio State can limit them to not big plays, I think, down the line, I can see the secondary getting better. I mean, they haven't been terrible this year, but they haven't been great either. So they're kind of right in the middle, and they need to improve. And as the year goes on, I think they will improve, and they'll like to be in that big spotlight like every Ohio State team. But, I can see them getting better. Urban Meyer is going to work with them, and I'm sure, the defensive coordinator, the DB's coach, is going to, work hard with this group and try to make them understand the concept and just try to get them to improve every week. And I think they will. They're a young group that wants to do well. And, last week, Wisconsin had a good game plan. That wide receiver, and his name slips me, but he is one of the best wide receivers that they'll probably face this year. He's very impressive and a big talent. And, Roby had a really tough time covering him, but this group will improve. I don't know if it will cost us a national championship. We'll have to wait and see, but they'll be better.
Do you see a scenario where we could go undefeated and not crack the top two as we're still in the BCS system before we go to the playoff next year? It's really early to be putting things like that out there. But this is kind of the reason why they're changing the format. And I'll get back to Northwestern real quick. But with the teams that are ranked up there, I mean the Buckeyes right now, they're only ranked number 4, and you just kind of start to wonder at this point in the season, what if we go undefeated and still miss it? Any thoughts, or way too early to be thinking that way?
Well, no, that's a possibility. I mean, how many teams have been undefeated and haven't made the national championship? I mean, that has happened. It kind of depends on some of the teams above them and if Ohio State can continue to win. I mean, they play some very good teams coming up. I know it's the Big Ten and, the SEC schools and their fans are going to say the Big Ten isn't as good, which we hear every single year. But, they're going to play, the likes of Michigan. I'm not sure Penn State is a great team this year, but Northwestern sure is a solid team. They're 4-0 this year, and they've played some good teams and will continue to. So Ohio State just needs to win and see where they fall in the end. I think, they're going to be right at the top. They should. They struggled year in and year out with Purdue, who's a team that, has not been very good in the past few years. So you just never know, especially in the Big Ten. Some of the schools that you might not think can beat Ohio State can give them a hard time. You just got to win every game and, see where you are in the end. But there's a good chance for that. But I think if they go undefeated, I think they'll be right up there. Yeah,
and, you mentioned Johnny Manziel a second ago, and that brings me back to this point. And it's interesting watching Terrell Pryor get to start a couple of games now, over here with the Oakland Raiders. But, the Johnny Manziel thing, it really struck me because when some of the players on the Buckeyes were selling some of their own merchandise, their own belongings, signing their own signature, making a couple of bucks. I mean, we lost Jim Tressel. We lost 2 years, scholarships, a whole, had an undefeated season last year. We couldn't even play for any of the marbles, which is kind of crazy. And then Manziel's doing similar activities. He gets his 2-quarter slap on the wrist. Did you find any hypocrisy in that? Because that really seemed to bother me. I don't know that the Ohio State infractions were all that dissimilar to what Manziel was doing, especially given the high profile of the Heisman winner doing it. Did you find that hypocritical in any way on the part of the NCAA, or just maybe it was worse because Tressel was air quote, I'm doing air quote because this doesn't translate onto radio, but because Tressel was hiding the truth or he knew about it. Any thoughts on that? Because that did strike me as kind of peculiar.
Well, first off, the NCAA rules are really tough. I mean, especially, like you said, it was their own merchandise that, they won on the field. They do get scholarships, so, that's pretty much their payment for playing the game. But if they've won that merchandise, I don't really find an issue with, having to sell, especially when you're a college student. We all have been there. And I also went to Bowling Green State University and was there for the Urban Meyer era. But, so we know what it's like to be a college student and not necessarily have a ton of money to spend on certain things. But Johnny Manziel, I'm not sure they could find enough evidence that he actually took money, I guess, from some of these guys, which, it's probably tough to find, especially if they're not giving them receipts and stuff like that. But the guy, I mean, he's wearing nice watches, driving nice vehicles. I'm sure he's been paid. This is just from me. I don't know if this has happened, but guys like that, I'm sure, take a little bit of money here and there, and it's tough to find. But the NCAA, I think that's when they need to take a look at the rules and just go back and look at some of them. Not even being able to take a little bit of food from a booster or something, to me is ridiculous. And it's tough to find these rules that the NCAA have between the Ohio State and Johnny Manziel. It is a little bit different because they talked about him accepting money and Ohio State players, trying to get money for their things. So it's really tough to say. I don't necessarily think either of those guys are necessarily wrong. I mean, he's giving out autographs, so it'll probably be worth some money. So why not give him a few bucks? But in the NCAA rules, you're not allowed to do that. So it's a tough line with some of those NCAA rules.
Well, and there's a growing movement now to get some of the players paid. And maybe find some way to evenly disperse it, or if you get an endorsement deal or you're doing commercials or something, you get to personally keep that. Do you have any thoughts on whether these kids should make money or if you should keep it pristine, air quotes again?
It's kind of tough because, a lot of people say, well, they are getting paid because of their scholarships, and that could be, between $14,000 and $20,000. But at the same time, I'm interested to see how much money the school makes on jersey sales. Getting a lot of those people into the school, $20,000 really isn't that much money in my opinion. I think there should be a line drawn with how much they can make. I think they should, if they're trying to sell their jerseys, their numbers and stuff, I think they should get paid. Or, like EA Sports using some of their numbers in the college football games. These kids don't make anything on that. And I know they do get a scholarship, but, the universities make a heck of a lot of money, and these athletes are playing for $10,000 to $20,000, which is nice to have a scholarship in education. But, I think something can be done here, whether it's some rule changes or whether they make a little bit. I think it wouldn't be a bad change necessarily. It might be tough, but I'm not sure how that would work.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was that lawsuit with EA Sports with featuring the players and trying to figure out if the NCAA and the schools themselves are making. I mean, they're selling the jerseys on their own homepage. It's kind of hard to say it's not about the money when it's clearly about the money, and you have 110,000 seat stadiums that are completely packed.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a much larger issue that I think we can explore when you have a little bit more time. Getting back to Northwestern game, number 4 Ohio State versus number 16 Northwestern, both undefeated. How do you see this one playing out? Let's get a bold prediction from you, Rob.
I think Ohio State, their offensive firepower is going to be too much. I really think they're going to come out ahead in this one. I think it's going to be one of those high-scoring games where Ohio State scores maybe 42 points and Northwestern still scores 24. I think Ohio State will come away with it, but give Northwestern credit. They're going to be a tough team. It's at Northwestern, which is a tough place to play. I think it's going to be close throughout the game, and maybe in the end, Ohio State will start to pull off a little bit, but I see Ohio State winning maybe 42-24 or 28. It's going to be a tough one, but I think the Buckeyes get through.
And see any other upsets in the making? Let's say that. Do you see anything in the horizon this weekend we should pay attention to? Any really interesting matchups? Anything that you just want to put the magnifying glass over top of and be like, hey, check this one out. You're going to see something cool. And any other games caught your interest this week?
I like I think the game I already have. The Florida State is a team that is going to be tough this year. They've had some tough battles, some close games, but they've been able to pull it off. You saw a great one last, I think it was a few weeks where you saw Manziel go against Bama. But, I don't see too many upsets in the top 10 right now. I think it's going to be tough. A lot of them in the middle of the year don't necessarily have, other than, the LSU, they play in conference, so there could be some interesting games there in the SEC. But overall, in the middle of the year right now is when you see some teams play some cupcakes at times, or even maybe a bye week in there. Because I know I think Northwestern. I can't remember if they had a bye week last week, but I know there's a few teams that go through some bye weeks right now.
Well, yeah, they're 4-0. The Buckeyes are 5-0, so they're missing a game in there.
Yeah, so right now I don't see too many upsets, but as the season goes along, I mean, there's going to be some interesting things happening in the SEC, especially with LSU, the Alabamas. I'm interested to see how that falls out. You saw Georgia last week come through, and Andy Murray, another quarterback that the spotlight's going to be on. So, Georgia already has a loss this year, but they've been playing very well, and they can very well stay in the top 25 because of their schedule. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting college football. There are some upsets, so, there might be things that surprise me and everyone else. But, right now I don't see it this weekend, but you never know.
Yeah, and they say in college football that the voters are a lot more forgiving of an early loss as they are to a later loss, when you have the Ohio State versus Michigan or something's in the last couple of weeks. And you look at the Buckeyes' schedule here, now Wisconsin's number 23 since we beat them last week, but really 23 Wisconsin, 16 Northwestern, 19 Michigan, and some cupcakes, some Buffalo, San Diego State, Florida A&M. I mean, we're not really winning with strength of schedule in the out-of-conference stuff, and we got to get past all the voters that are going to look at the Big Ten in a iffy way as well. But they make these schedule seasons in advance. I mean, sometimes you never know who you're going to be getting, but I don't know, the Buffalo, San Diego State, Cal, or Florida A&M are powerhouses by any stretch. But maybe that'll change in the future. Who knows? But I'll tell you what, one of the definitions for the word serendipity, if you're familiar with it, I just pulled it up to make sure I had it correct. It means a happy accident or a pleasant surprise. And I would say that you, Rob, joining our program today, it was just kind of this happy little accident that occurred. A friend of a friend, and then someone's out hanging out and drinking with you, and your brother's friend, and sports, and then hey, let's jump on the show.
Yeah.
So we won't bore people with all the details of how this occurred, but it was a good happy accident. And
you know what? It really was. And you know what? I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully we could do it more. It was a good time, and your brother Chris graduated with him. Great guy, and we're all BG alums, so we got to stick together here.
Yeah, what years were you at Bowling Green then? Would that be 2001 through 05? How did that work? 04?
I think it was 2002 to 2005. I was there.
Yeah, I was
graduated 2005.
Yeah, I was playing in my rock band with my brother over at Howard's, and let's see, Nate and Wally's and Easy Street and all those places, and who knows, if you were in the bar, maybe I served you at Uptown, Downtown, or Buffalo Wild Wings, or jeez.
You probably did at some point.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's both of our shows have to do with Cleveland sports and boozing. So, tell you what, man, like I said earlier, anytime you want to jump back on, we'll do this again. I definitely enjoyed having you on, and feel free to send the invite. Well, I'd be more than happy to jump on your program. Once again, you can check out his program, Sports on Tap. Check it out, SOT Podcast. That's on Twitter at SOT Podcast. Follow him directly at rtrauty. That's RTRAUTY. And one of the main places to find him would be facebook.com/SOT Podcast. Rob, thank you so much for joining us. We will do this again, sir. I enjoyed your presence here for sure.
Hey, I appreciate it. You guys enjoy the sports weekend, and thanks for having me.
Go Buckeyes. Take care. That was Rob Trautman. Good times. Really, serendipity. It just kind of happened by accident that he came onto the program, but we're happy that he did. Real quick, make sure you check out our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com. Follow us on Facebook. Search The New American Media. Follow us there. Go on Twitter. We're at American_media_, and make sure that you subscribe. YouTube.com/The New American Media. My name's Brian Engelman, and I appreciate you listening to the Unhappy Hour here on the TNAM Radio Network.